are not going on these big missions and journeys trying to teach other people about Hinduism. Okay, you can convert, but that's not something that they're concerned with it. So for that reason, you're only born into it. So it kind of stays where it began in India. A lady lives down the street from me. She is practicing Hinduism, and we went by her house for Halloween a couple years ago, and she had like all kinds of different decorations. My son was asking all types of questions, and she answered all the questions. She was really friendly, told us all about it, but at no point was she like, you should come worship with us, try this religion out. Like it's not part of it. Okay, so when it does diffuse, it's usually through relocation diffusion. Her and her family were born in India, and she up and moved out here to Guilford County and brought the religion with her. But you don't see it then just taken off in Guilford County, because she's not going door to door trying to teach people about her religion. The last ethnic religion we're going to look at, and the last of the 5, is Judaism. So this is another ethnic religion, which means they're not trying to get people to join. As we already mentioned, it is monotheistic. So they are worshiping one God. They call their God Yahweh, as Christians call that same God in English. And in Arabic, the Muslims say Allah. So a big symbol, you see the Star of David. And most people, a lot that they know about Judaism comes from learning about World War II and the atrocities, and we'll touch into that in just a second. But the basic foundational beliefs, as we said, their God is Yahweh. The holy book that they read ties in with the Old Testament of the Bible and what they call the Torah. And the distribution is a lot of them live in Israel and big cities around the world. Okay, there's a lot of Jewish people in the United States as well. And this goes back to World War II and the Holocaust. So as the Germans tried to round up as many Jewish people as they can in the worst genocide in history and try to basically eliminate them from the globe, when that war was over, the Jewish people believed that Yahweh gave them this covenant, this promise, and gave them specific land, which is in Israel today, and they did not occupy it. So for many, many generations, because Judaism is a monotheistic religion and most of the ancient religions are polytheistic, they would refuse to worship the gods of the ruling power in the Roman Empire and different places. And they're lots of times persecuted, pushed into certain areas of society and forced to live there. They call those ghettos. And what happens is this thing called the diaspora. And this could happen to any group, but it's most famously applied and used when referring to the Jewish people. And it comes from the word dispersed. So the diaspora means dispersed, and this is why Jewish people are spread all over the place, because before they had Israel and the United Nations decided to give them that land back, they were just kind of on the move and constantly spread out due to historical circumstances. The last ethnic religion we're going to look at is not necessarily religion, but kind of a category, and it's called animist. And I like to think that everything is animated with spirits. Okay, so there's different ethnics or tribes. This is definitely folk culture that are really in tune with nature. A lot of times they have a shaman, which is a religious leader, like the medicine man of the village. They're almost always in very underdeveloped places, and the diffusion is through relocation as they move. And they kind of think that, there's different spirits and gods of all different things that surrounding them, and this is kind of very old and basic religion of animist traditions. So it's not like they all have the same kind of concept. All right, and then the last part we're going to do is on, bear with me, I got a lot of stuff up on my screen, ethnicity. As soon as I find it. Here we go. All right, let's see, share. Perfect. This one's pretty short too. Okay, so we're going to look at the difference between ethnicity and race, and I thought what better way than having a lady who just finished a race, an actual race, holding up a flag which represents her ethnicity and her people. So ethnicity is kind of like slapping a name on your cultural group, right? So this is socially created, socially constructed. People have come up with these, and you decide, hey, we act this way, we speak this language, we tend to do this religion, we like this kind of hat or our hair this way, whatever it may be, and you put a name for your people. Okay, so socially created system of rules about who belongs to which group based on either actual things they have in common or things that you perceive that they have in common. So language and religion are big ones that kind of tie people together. All right, and then where it gets a little bit tricky is that throughout history, a lot of people of the same ethnicity try to bond together. People tend to like be pulled towards people that are most like them in different ways, and culture is a big one. And when they bond together, they want to protect themselves from the outside groups. So a lot of countries throughout the world are founded by, hey, we all speak this language, we all have the same culture, let's bond together, let's stake out some territory, let's build a wall around it, let's build a military, let's keep protected from those people. Okay, so a lot of countries have a particular ethnicity, and then they've made it a legal citizenship, which is what's going to be called your nationality. Okay, so don't get confused with this, because if you were born in America, there are many Americans who have the same nationality, but we have tons of different ethnicities and cultures within America. We are very, very diverse culturally and politically on our opinions, if you read the internet at all. But we all have the same nationality. That's like that legal attachment to a country. The problem pops up is when people start to have what's called ethnocentrism. So you all probably all heard of someone who's self-centered, right? This ethnocentrism, they believe that their ethnicity is the best. So if they use their culture to kind of judge other people, and here's the superior standard of which how you should be doing things, and anyone doing them different are beneath us, that's called ethnocentrism. And this is something that's very hateful and something that we are trying to educate the next generation to move away from that, judge people based on, the content of their character, not their culture or their skin. We're not to race yet. Okay. And then sometimes this leads to ethnic cleansing. So what they will decide is if this group of people, this one ethnicity has a country, but within their borders gets caught another ethnicity that's different than them, and they don't like them being there, they try to expel them or remove them from their country, right? That's called ethnic cleansing. And then a form of that is what's called genocide, which I mentioned before, is when they're not only trying to get them out of the country, but they're just trying to kill them altogether. And if we had this class longer, for like a year-long class, we'd kind of pause here and do a lot of different case studies. We'd dive way deeper into the Holocaust, which is, I have the bullet point here, Jews in Germany with the genocide. Most of you get that several times throughout school and world history, and they believe they talk about it again in U.S. history and English class and stuff like that. There's also other examples like the Indian Removal Act in the United States, where they passed a law to push Native Americans off the land so they could expand the United States. That would be more of ethnic cleansing, even though many were killed during the process. And then there is a movie that was pretty popular, probably about 2004, called Hotel Rwanda with Don Cheadle. And it was about this civil war taking place between these two ethnic groups who were just absolutely trying to annihilate one another, all based on, their perceived ethnicity. And then another one is apartheid. If you've heard of apartheid in South Africa, the history of South Africa was settled by the English and the Dutch at the same time. And both of those, if you're not familiar with geography or cultures, are white people who came in to South Africa, who was full of people with darker skin in South Africa. And when the English and the Dutch took control of the government, they actually wrote laws down, very straightforward, that said, if you are white, you have these certain privileges. If you're black, you do not. So they separated people into class based on race, and this system is called apartheid. And this lasted up until like the 1990s, which is a very long time throughout history for stuff like that to be going on. And there's these big world kind of global efforts pushing back and restricting trade with them to try to get them to stop it. And if you know the figure Nelson Mandela, who came in as one of the black first presidents of South Africa and kind of put all that to rest. But that was a very strict legalized racism. It wasn't like anything where like things on the book look like, yeah, everyone has equal rights, but then when it played out, it was different. It was straight up like on the books, like, no, you do not. So that was some horrible examples of ethnic cleansing and racial tensions there with apartheid. And as I said, if we had more time in this class, we'd go and do a lot of case studies on that, but things to touch over. With ethnicities, now we're taking it back to geography, right? So an area called a ghetto is where they'll push an ethnic minority and they're forced to live in like a certain type of town. Sometimes it's based on economic pressure, where there's certain things at play that allow them to not be able to afford to live anywhere else but there. There could be straight up laws, so like legal codes, so that the ghettos in Germany like figured out who all the Jews were and made them live there legally, or it could just be kind of like slighter governmental pressures. But that was what would be called a ghetto. A place that's voluntary then would be an ethnic enclave. So when we talked about chain migration, as people move to different countries, it's much easier to move where there's people who speak your language, practice your culture. And as a result, a lot of times these ethnic enclaves pop up. So a place where an ethnic minority is concentrated and surrounded by a majority. So if you go in big cities around the United States, you see examples of Koreatown, Chinatown, Little Havana. You have a lot of Cuban people in Miami. If you even go back further in history, there were specific ones from different Europeans, like Little Italy, and things like that. Those are all examples of ethnic enclaves. And then the last slide for today is race, which is a very complex issue, but the definition is pretty straightforward. And this is classifying human beings based on physical characteristics, mainly skin color, but could also deal with, different facial features, hair texture, hair color, things like that as well. So when you look at race and ethnicity, a lot of times they do match up. But this is kind of the big push that we're trying to do in today's society, is to not look at somebody, see their race, and assume you also know everything else you need to know about them, including their ethnicity, what foods they like, what they're into, and different things like that. So you can't control your race; you're born into it. But your ethnicity is something that you kind of learn throughout your life. So you can take somebody who is born in Zimbabwe in the heart of Africa, and before they are like weeks old, move them like deep into Scotland, right, and be raised by a Scottish family, and their race, right, as you look at them, will have African characteristics of their race, but their culture will grow up with the Scots, right, and they'll probably have that hard, thick Scottish accent and stuff like that, because that your ethnicity is learned, but your race is classifying you strictly on the way you look. All right, that wraps it up for today. It also wraps up Unit 3. So as we said, we're going to test on this stuff on Friday. That testing window, you've got to make sure you're meeting it. We're going to start to put in some penalties for anyone who misses the testing window, because it's not fair that you're getting extra time to study. And I want to make sure that those that are meeting the testing window have a fair level playing field. So you got to make sure that on Friday you're ready for that. Set an alarm on your phone, whatever it is. And if something comes up, you get terribly ill, something like that, let me know. The sooner the better. I'll try to work with you, but we're going to start to kind of do that moving forward, just to make things fair. Any questions for me?